Easy Tribe. This may not be the first time you've seen me do some sort of distorted 808 tutorial. There's some different twists on this one, some extra things to look out for and be mindful of, and a few really cool plugins that I'd like to show you. And yeah, hopefully it will add to your skill set in DIY distorted 808 bass sounds. I find a lot of people use samples or sampler instruments, which is fine, but some of them you have very little control. A lot of the distortion and the saturation has already been applied, so it gives you minimal control, and a lot of the time the low end isn't quite what it needs to be, especially when you've put it in amongst some drums and other sounds. It might sound really fat on its own, but it's really good to have as much control as you can over as many different frequency areas as possible, especially when it comes to bass. So I'll be as quick and as to the point as possible on this one. So we have an 808 sub bass sound in the key of C minor, which can work alongside F minor or A flat major. This is a very simple bass line here. 170 BPM, jungle drum and bass, but this technique can be used for any genre. Here's what we have. This can be found in Logic in the Ultra Beat drum machine, Boutique 808 drum kit, but if you go beyond the hits, you'll find from C3 onwards is a scaled I don't know how many octaves you've got there. Yeah, a couple of octaves of the 808 bass, which is quite nice. So that's what we have here. The idea for the sub layer is to find one as clean as possible. Now this one does have some extra harmonics that I'm not a huge fan of, because the whole point is to expose those low fundamentals. I will point out here at the moment, Ultra Beat, this is in stereo, but the signal, as you can see, is equal, so there's no real concern there. Generally you want your subs and your lows to be in mono, but what I would do when I'm happy with the processing is I would bounce this and fold it down to mono. I'm going to just open an EQ and take out some of those extra harmonics that I don't want. So this is now our sub layer. It's got rid of the extra harmonics because we're going to add our own, and it's actually taken away some of the clicks that I wasn't too keen on. We have now 1, 2, 3 different layers, and each of them have the same MIDI, so the exact same pattern. On the first layer here, I'm using an amp by Brainworks, UAD, Universal Audio Digital. I'm loving a lot of their stuff at the moment, I have to say. And this is the Diesel Herbert's amp. We're going to take out, put the EQ after the amp. Well, I guess let's see. We can maybe EQ the amp itself, but sometimes I like to leave the frequencies in on the amp and actually have an independent EQ. I find you get a somewhat different result, but we'll try and work with this for now. So it's running through an amp. Now turn it right down. Be careful of your ears. This is what we call sound design, and sound design can have a habit of jumping out and catching you off guard and hurting your ears, blowing up speakers and all that bad stuff. So just going to preset bash for a minute. The ideal situation is on the three layers is to have them representing different kind of frequency bands or different parts of the frequency spectrum. You don't want to look for them to be hitting in the similar areas. So we're going to go for something a bit higher, I think. Kind of like that. Let's take out a bit of the bass. Let's play it alongside our sub layer. Going to keep flicking through them, not overly. Well, let's try and take some mid out. Kind of like the Les Paul. Let's take the bass out. That's nice, that spaghetti crunch. Let's take the lows out. Now, throughout this whole process, we need to be aware that by applying these effects and EQing layered with a similar signal, we may be knocking the phase off, and it can actually have a counterproductive effect. I'll show you in a second how to look out for that, and we'll see if what we've done has created any issues that we can fix. So let's go for that layer for now. We have another layer, and on here I have the PT100. I won't go into too much detail about these amps. I will be doing a lot more UAD stuff and going into depth about what they replicate or what the purpose is. But as you well know, it's about using things in ways that they might not necessarily be designed for. Amps commonly used on bass and stuff. I mean, I run amps on vocals, percussion, you name it. I do love a good amp. So let's see what the PT100 has with the same pattern. Now I like that. How similar is it to that? Quite similar. Let's take the bass out. We have some more low mids in there. I'm not sure whether together okay, well they kind of work. I was looking for, I think I need something a bit more higher, something in a higher register, but that's fine for now. So let's play those two and do a quick balance. Yeah, and they do. You can tell they're quite similar. This one has, layer 2 has some more low mids, but they're doing something different. Number 3, I applied, or I lined up the Eden World Tour 800, but I have a feeling I was bashing through some presets. It's been a long day, and I have a feeling it's something a bit more lower. Well, obviously this is a bass guitar amp. So let's see though. So obviously we haven't EQ'd out those clicks, and the clicks can be quite percussive in the other layers. Didn't need them in the low one. Let's take some of this bass out and see if we can just maintain some of the saturation. I was taking it out and I was wondering why I could still hear it then. That gives it a nice knock actually. Okay, let's have a fourth layer. And on the fourth one, I just going to go for some straight up distortion, Logic's overdrive, so we can dial in some tone. I'm looking for something, going to give it a real big drive. Again, turn it right down, don't want to smash yours or my ears. Copy the MIDI down. Let's take out a lot. There we go, I just want that sizzle. The idea is to have, again, different frequencies, make sure they're all contributed, not taken away, and they can be, they're quite distinct from one another. That's nice if we feel the sound is a bit low and could do with some more brightness in the mix. Instead of having to EQ, we can just draw for any one of these sounds and turning them up to as like an EQ essentially as well. So if you had one sound here and you wanted to, say for example, you had all your drums playing and you felt the 808 was a bit quiet, you'd end up turning it up, the one sound that was already distorted, too much bass, trigger the compressor too much, or you might try and compress to tame certain things, and you can get into all sorts of issues. So I like to just have different layers and control the frequencies and the sub. No matter what, this is my sub. Nice, clean, heavy, and then we have these layers that we can do what we want with, and actually like a perceived loudness. If you start pushing the frequencies that our ears are a bit more in tune to, something like 2 to 4K, you can give the bass a perceived loudness, but it actually won't be doing too much damage by having the lows swallow up a lot of the song. So yeah, so let's have a look at what we have here now. Now I'm just going to add a gain plugin to each of these just to check the phase. So my processor didn't like that. Let me just quickly check my preferences. I was doing some quite intense processor stuff. I was messing with my buffer size. So let me just actually, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Just initializing core audio. Let's flip the phase. Sometimes the differences can be quite subtle, or there may not be any differences at all. But ultimately what we don't want is the power of the sub to be attenuating, so reducing as we apply these layers. So just going to check the rest. So we're phase inverting. In most DAWs, there is a utility to allow you to flip phase. I guess just a quick search in your DAW to see, or there's some really cool free plugins out there as well. Now, that's doing something. I guess it's down to us to determine whether we like what it's doing or not. So I'll turn it on and off. It is quite subtle. So this is with the phase inverted. Yeah, so if you look at the peak on our stereo out, with the phase inverted, peak is minus 6.1. If we take the inversion off, minus 5.9. So not a lot, but frequency content wise, I can definitely hear. Let me just try and work out exactly what it is I can hear. So now it's more these two sounds because we've taken, they're more similar because we've obviously taken out the lows, so the shape or the frequencies these are hitting them are more similar. So, but then the subtle differences are causing the phase relationship between them to be a bit more mismatched, and therefore we're hearing some phase things there. But it's not an issue, it's not affecting the sub layer. So let's play these two together. So actually, when I flip the phase on layer 2, I'm hearing more, I don't want to say lows, but kind of low, mid kind of rumble. And I prefer it without. So let's check the third layer. Again, what we're mainly looking for is an issue with, oh, I don't want to be adding that, do I? An issue with the lows being cancelled out. So let's put, I don't think we should have too many issues with certainly the last one, but let's check this one. Or possibly with this one. So, because we have left, actually let's do an extra, let's carve a bit more out there. See, these sounds are obviously more similar due to the frequency content, therefore the phase. So actually this layer 3, we have a look at what it's peaking with the phase inverted. So our master peak without minus 3.7, if we flip it, significant difference there. But I kind of, what I think it's doing is, in a way, it's kind of EQ'd it for us. So it's taken out, it's cancelled out some of the lows in the distorted layer 3 that we left in, and it's exposed, or it's let the sub layer come through more, but it still has an effect. So if I just take it on and off, there is a trade-off. Obviously, we're losing some tones, but see, for me, I think the earthiness is coming through more. Now, we have these other layers for those frequencies that I'm missing by not having the phase inverted on this one. So I don't think we're losing too much. Let's try. And what I would probably do is I would just line up all of the gain plugins on each while they're all playing, and just see what I'm losing and where, and whether I'm okay with that. And, you know, obviously it could go on forever. There's numerous combinations of phase being inverted on some and not on others. So, you know, you don't want to let it drive you crazy. So if I just play everything as it is right now. Prefer it with that on. Actually, I prefer that inverted. So we've actually just inverted all of them. Let's take them all off and see. That's interesting. So with all of them flipped, I prefer it than all of them not flipped. So obviously by the phase being flipped or inverted against the sub layer, I'm preferring that. Let's just try it again. Sounds a bit dirty and a bit not as nice as I want it. But with all of these, just sounds tighter to me. Actually really like it without that. Let's just tuck that right back. Very low, but our ears are sensitive to it. Don't lose sight. Make sure everything is contributing in a way that you like it. And there we go. 808, we have our sub layer, and 1, 2, 3, 4 different layers doing different things, different amps. There's so many different amps out there. There's some good free ones. I like the Logic stock plugins. UAD doing some amazing things. Trash 2 by Isotope. Fab Filters distortion. You know, there's so many different distortions that you can try and experiment with. Sound Toys have some stuff. Any sort of saturation, run it through some analog gear, clip it. There's loads of really good clipping plugins, tape emulation, you name it. There's some loads of ways that you can distort and saturate and layer. But my tip is have that independent sub and do mess around with the phase. There's a really cool plugin by Waves, I believe, called In Phase for checking the phase, but actually a lot of it can be quite subjective. It may be out of phase and it might sound better when things are playing in combination like this, and there will be different combinations. You know, again, you can go down a rabbit hole, but I prefer how the phase on all of these layers have been flipped, the relationship they have with the sub I am in favor of that over them not being inverted. And this is our result. There's other things you can do. You can add some modulation, so have some of these layers with filters on. I'll show you really quick on one of them. And you could actually do this on sends. So you could have different buses depending on your processor power. I just like to have different tracks right in front of me so I can see what's going on. But you can do this just as effectively with sends, the same sound, running into different buses. But yeah, let's quickly just add a filter. I'm going to use, I love the UAD Moog XL. I have a couple of presets that I messed around with or tweaked. You can have one of them with a reverb. Let's create some depth and a 3D sort of vibe. Then you might find you have to check the phase again, but actually if it sounds okay, it's cool. The main thing is that you don't start to lose the oomph and the weight from the sub layer. If you find yourself keep having to turn it up, chances are you've added processes that have knocked things out of phase and it's just cancelling out some of the low end here. And there we have it. So experiment, do what you want with these layers, but just let this one be a sub. My advice is don't compress it. Just let it be nice and clean. Don't clip it, don't saturate it. Just have it doing its thing. Let it be a sub bass layer. Hope you found that helpful. Till next time, peace.